The next thing that you may not be expecting when you become a lawyer is that you are probably not going to immediately make a boatload of money. Hey y'all, I'm Tiffany Weber and I am a real estate attorney in Mooresville, North Carolina. And today we're going to talk about the things they don't tell you about becoming a lawyer. The first thing that surprised me, I don't know if it was that surprising, but one of the things that nobody told me about becoming a lawyer is that in general, law schools don't really teach a lot of practical skills about how you practice law. So your first year, maybe even 2 of practice, depending on your practice area, is like an extended law school or an extended almost apprenticeship in learning how to do your job. So law school, for the most part, does not prepare you for the work of being a lawyer. It prepares you to think like a lawyer. So hopefully the law school that you decide to go to or are going to has explained that to you, but don't be surprised when you get to your first day at the job and you're given an assignment and you have no idea what to do. So that's something that you're going to learn on the job, and you need to make sure you find mentors and people that are willing to coach you through it. But you also have to be willing to try to struggle through and find answers on your own, because for a lot of people, that's how they learn the best. So that first year, at least just plan on it being like another extended learning experience of figuring out how to do this job that you just spent all this money and time thinking that you learned how to do already. The next thing that I was not prepared for or expecting when I became a lawyer is the number of people that ask me for non-legal advice, thinking that it's legal advice. So we'll get questions about how do I talk to my neighbor about XYZ, when it's really just they're asking for interpersonal skills or how to phrase something. And I want to tell those people, you should not be paying me to ask this question. This is not a legal question. So that really surprised me whenever people would just ask me basic, like, how do I talk to other people type questions. And along with that, I also learned that most people, the general public that doesn't have a lot of interaction with attorneys, they don't realize that most of the time attorneys focus on a particular area of the law and they get very good at it. So they know as much as they can about this particular area, and that makes them the best at that thing. But that means they don't learn about other areas of the law. So the number of DMs and emails and phone calls I get from people that I have not spoken to in 20 years saying, I have a DUI, can you represent me? Pretty high. I don't do that type of law. I do real estate law. So if you want me to represent you in your DUI, then that's bad for you and for me, because I'm not going to be able to help you the best. So having to explain to people or trying to tell your grandma's church friend why you can't help her grandson through his divorce, not super fun, having to teach people that, oh, we don't all do everything. The next thing that you may not be expecting when you become a lawyer is that you are probably not going to immediately make a boatload of money. So even if you are one of the attorneys that end up in big law where the salaries are very high, most of the time those are in high cost of living areas. So you're spending a lot of that money on rent and just living day to day. But also, you tend to have a lot of student debt. So those attorneys that are working in those big cities and making a lot of money are not necessarily enjoying that money. And many of them, you'll find they talk about it on their YouTube videos or in their blogs about how, yes, I am in big law now, but I'm doing this so that I can save as much money as I can, pay off my student loans, get out of debt, and then I am getting out of here and I'm going to go in-house, or I'm going to go to a mid-sized firm or move to a different market. So just because they're making a lot of money, they're not necessarily enjoying it. And then if you are not in big law, then you are almost certainly not going to immediately make a lot of money. It may take a long time. Now, the flip side of that is if you play your cards right, if you work hard, if you find an area that suits you very well in a market that can support higher salaries, then you have the potential to earn a lot of money. So you have to be very careful in how you plan. Make sure you plan your career and take the steps that you can to put yourself into positions to capitalize on those opportunities. And then, of course, get a financial planner so that you don't, squander all the money away if you get the chance to make it. The next thing that you've probably been told about being a lawyer, but you may not understand until you're actually practicing, is that you work a lot. So this is a rewarding career. It takes a lot of training to be able to do. There's a lot of potential for reward, but you have to work very hard to be able to achieve those things. So right out of school, especially if you're like in litigation, there are times where your schedule is insane. You may not be sleeping a lot. The number of times that I was working all night and my husband had to go get cereal and bring it in to make sure that I ate in the middle of the night, too many times for me to count. But that's not always the case for every practice area. Every practice area has its ebbs and flows, but you should be prepared that there will be times that you are working like crazy. Like there's not a lot of balance. I know we talk a lot about work-life balance. It's not something that like every day you'll have this 8 hours of work and then you're gonna have the rest of the time to yourself. There may be times where you have weeks of crazy work and then it slows down a little bit and you get to take a little bit more time for yourself. So it's certainly not an everyday perfectly balanced thing. Just make sure you're mindful of that whenever you're choosing your practice area and coming out of law school. The next thing, and if you're in law school, you may have already started this, but once you take your first torts class, you start to notice risks everywhere. So you'll see, the thing on the sidewalk that could cause injury to someone, and you're trying to figure out who would be liable for that injury. And then certainly once you practice law, if you're in litigation or personal injury especially, then you start to notice all of these things that can go wrong that can cause someone to be catastrophically injured. So one thing that I think of, my late law partner, Ben Thomas, we were real estate attorneys, but earlier in his practice, he did a fair amount of personal injury law. And because of that, he had some very specific rules for his children. And one of those revolved around trampolines. So one, trampolines can make it hard for you to get homeowners insurance, but also they can be very dangerous. So he had a rule in his house, no trampolines, kids. So they didn't have a trampoline at home. And a couple years ago, we were at dinner with him and his family, and his children were there. And they're, like one's graduated college now, one's about to graduate college, but, they were both in college at the time. And his son, Will, talked about going to a friend's house, and he revealed to his father that when he would go to this friend's house, he always took the opportunity to jump on the trampoline because they were not allowed. And he said, I never felt so alive. And I just thought that was hilarious because I know why Ben didn't want him to jump on the trampoline. It's the same reason I wouldn't want my kids to jump on the trampoline, because I know the risks and you can see how badly someone can get injured. So sometimes being a lawyer can make you think of only the bad things that can happen, and you can forget about the fact that your kids never felt so alive as when they were jumping on that trampoline. So that's something that you may not be expecting, but that will happen to you when you become a lawyer. So the next thing that people don't really tell you when you become a lawyer is that there are opportunities afforded to you just because of your profession. I think there's a caveat to that. If you are humble and you are good with people, I think you are given more opportunities because of your profession. So I think about in the local community, there are a lot of times where local boards want attorneys to sit on their board because they may need advice about something, or they feel, for example, real estate attorneys in particular get approached for economic development committees because they have the real estate knowledge and the legal knowledge to help deals be put together. So being a lawyer gives you an opportunity to help people in your community in ways that you wouldn't have expected just because of your role in your job. And finally, the thing that you may not realize when you become a lawyer is that you will have legitimate, real opportunities to make a difference in real people's lives. So when I first came out of law school, I was working in litigation, and I used to joke that I helped rich people fight about money. And that certainly taught me a lot, but I didn't get that sense of fulfillment out of, like helping rich people fight about money certainly has its utility, but there were times where I wish I could help someone else, someone in a different position. So you will get those opportunities. Like in real estate law, we get the calls from, the little old ladies that need help and they don't have the money to pay, but you know that you can help them. So whenever you help them through their issue and you get that call from them, if they're just so relieved that it's done and you helped them, there's just a different feeling to that. It gives you a great sense of fulfillment. And I also think about our firm's relationship with Habitat for Humanity. A couple years ago, we built a house, so my law partner Ben Thomas kind of funded and kind of got everything started for us to build a house from start to finish. And not only did we build the house for this family, but we got to do their closing too. So it was really seeing it through from start to finish of what a difference housing can make in people's lives. That's the thing I really love about real estate law, because homeownership can just change the course of your life financially, but also stability. And that's something that I really love about being a lawyer, is that you get to help real people and see the impacts of what you do every day in their lives and in the future. So hopefully that explained a little bit more about the things that you may not be expecting or the things you weren't told about becoming a lawyer. So if you're thinking about going to law school, I think it's great. I think being a lawyer is a great profession. I've talked in some of my other videos about how it's a pet peeve of mine when lawyers tell other people not to become lawyers, because it's a really fulfilling profession if you find your area and you pursue it with passion. So I hope this helps. Got a lot of other videos on my channel about being a lawyer, about real estate law. So go check out those videos, and I will see you in the next one.